Hi guys, welcome back to yet another fun DIY refit video here about my slightly green 38-foot sailboat Athena. I only just got back from spending Christmas and New Year's with Ava in Los Angeles yesterday, so I am a little bit jet lagged, but I've got a ton of exciting stuff here in the trunk of my car. Athena's new head showed up over Christmas, and I've also brought back a duffel bag filled with boat goodies. Let's get all of this stuff hauled up the ladder. It's incredibly warm considering that we are in the middle of January, and while it's nice not to get frostbite, it does mean that both Athena and Obelix, the boat I'm living aboard, is covered in a bunch of green stuff, which I'm gonna have to clean at some point. Looking at this surface, this does definitely not look like a paint job that's only about a year old. I really hope I don't drop this. Besides Athena's new head and the duffel bag full of boat goodies, up at the workshop I've got all the parts for the gimbal box that's going to be here in the galley that's going to house the electric oven and the induction cooktop. So that means not only can I start building the head, I can also start building the galley. I'm crazy excited about both those projects, and on top of that, the parts for Athena's new boiler are also waiting up at the workshop. So it's just a very exciting time. But for now, in this video, let's just focus on the head. By the end of this video, I am hopeful that I'll have all the plywood tapped in place that's going to be used for securing the new head. And speaking of said head, let's go ahead and open the box. Ta-da! A very well packaged Raritan Marine Elegance. I put quite a bit of time into researching my choice of head, and the Marine Elegance does seem to have some really nice features, but more importantly, a really good reputation when it comes to reliability. There are a couple of different versions of this head, the Marine Elegance head. There is one for saltwater, one for freshwater. Both of those come in a straight back or angled back version, but the one I've got here is the Sea Fresh model, which means you can flush with either freshwater or saltwater. Switching between the two modes is as easy as flipping a switch. This switch, to be exact. There are some upsides to flushing your head with freshwater rather than saltwater, but Ava, bless her little heart, I love her dearly, she pees around every 10 minutes or so, and we just don't have enough tankage here aboard Athena to compensate for that. So I thought it was a really nice feature to be able to switch between freshwater and saltwater just by flipping a switch. Even though the Marine Elegance head has a good reputation for reliability, I thought it was nice to err on the side of caution. So I've already picked up a new discharge pump assembly here, meaning mainly the macerator pump, as well as a little service kit for the discharge pump. That means if we ever have any kind of issues with the head, all I'll have to do is to unbolt the old discharge assembly, bolt the new one in place, and we're back to pooping in comfort. Then I can take my time and hopefully repair the original discharge assembly using this little repair kit. I think when it comes to yucky stuff, it's better just to err on the side of caution. There is one more item here in the duffel bag that's related to the new head, and that is the control panel. If you order this head from Defender, the toilet comes without the control panel. The version of the control panel I've got here is the top of the line one with built-in Bluetooth. And yes, that actually means you can flush your head using your phone, which is kind of a ridiculous feature that I'm probably never gonna use. But the Bluetooth version does give you a little bit more flexibility in terms of mounting this panel because you don't need to run a lot of wiring to the panel. Using this control panel, you can either do a full flush, a water-saving flush, you can fill the bowl with water, or you can empty the bowl. And I'm assuming all of these features are also available in their app, but like I said, I am never gonna use that. Included with the control panel is this little black box, which is what gets hooked up to the wiring on the toilet. The communication between the black box and the control panel is Bluetooth, meaning wireless. So all you need to do is to pop a few batteries into the control panel. There's no need to run any wiring to this. And then you can place the control panel basically where you want. There is one more little item in the duffel bag for the head. It's not terribly interesting. It is this little inlet strainer. So yeah, let's put this over here and let's look at what other goodies are in the duffel bag. First up, I've got 2 sets of stainless steel drawer slides that I'm going to use in the head. I couldn't find anywhere in Europe to purchase stainless steel drawer slides without them costing an arm and a leg, so that's why I've personally imported these. Then over here, all this stuff is for a little DIY fuel polisher. There is a Raycor fuel filter and water separator, identical to the one on the main diesel engine. I've got a little diesel fuel pump here, and a little digital timer, and an alarm that's gonna let me know when or if water starts accumulating in the water separator. This contraption is gonna be its own little separate video, but real quick, what I wanna do is to use this timer to run this diesel pump that'll circulate diesel from the tank through this fuel filter and water separator. That means any kind of contaminants or buildup of condensation that's going to be in the diesel tank should wind up in this guy. That means when we get out in rough weather, we shouldn't have any issues with the fuel filter on the engine. It should all be trapped in here. Over here on the other side of the settee, I've got a, well, let's just go ahead and call this a seacog, although that is going to land me in hot water with some people because this is not a true tapered traditional seacog. It is a through hole and a ball valve essentially, but it's just a lot easier to say seacog. I was planning on using exclusively the composite seacogs from a True Design here aboard Athena, but there are some areas where I have a little bit of a space constraint, and also where these are going to be mounted close to some very heavy items. And if those come loose, well then this thing is going to take more of a beating than the composite alternative. So at least some places I am going to go with the more traditional option. Last but certainly not least, a couple of you guys actually sent me Christmas presents, which was a very nice surprise. So thank you to David for this measuring transferring doohickey, which is used for transferring shapes. And I think this is going to come in very useful when I start putting up trim. Also, a great big thank you to Bob, who sent me these electronic fiberglass shears. I've never had anything like this before. My thumbs and Ava's thumbs are sure to be eternally grateful this summer when we start laying up glass over the new tow rail. Yesterday, after I was done yammering on, I made a quick template for the piece of plywood I'm going to use as a support for one side of the head. And I also cut that piece of plywood, and it's going to go somewhere right around there. Of course, the head is going to go here in the middle. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out the layout here in the head. In the end, I ended up grabbing a bunch of measurements when I was flying home from LA. That was a small but very usable toilet, so I'm going to base the head here aboard Athena on those measurements. Here are those measurements. Now on the plane there was 69 centimeters between the two walls here where the toilet was located, and I think I'm going to end up with 68 or 67 centimeters, so it's fairly close. I checked yesterday and I'm going to end up with 24 centimeters between the main structural bulkhead here and the smaller little mini bulkhead. And I want these two to be parallel because I want to put some little drawers in here using those drawer slides I showed you yesterday. The easiest way to make sure that these two are parallel is simply just use a bunch of little spacers. I've cut these to be exactly 24 centimeters. Using my little spacers, these should now be very much parallel, but I do still need to trim this a little bit. There's going to be another piece of plywood joined onto this with a glassed butt joint. That plywood is going to form part of the vanity that's going to go here. And to make life a little bit easier for myself, I want to make sure that this is at 90 degrees to the cabin sole. It looks like I am fairly close. I'm about a millimeter off over 80 centimeters. I think I've got enough play to simply just adjust for that when I'm tapping the plywood to the hull. The next step is going to be to cut out a little bit of the plywood to make room for what's going to be the vanity. Of course, that means I need to decide the height of the sink right now, and I've put this at 90 centimeters, which looks good to me. I've left enough room in here for the drawer slides. Of course, these are gonna go on the other side, but there's plenty of room for the drawers and for a little bit of insulation up against the hull. All that's left for me to do tonight is to get one side of this tabbed to the hull. It is the next day. The tapping in the head should have cured enough that I can start building the plateau or little platform the head is gonna sit on. It's gonna look something like this. Of course, the compromise here is I want to maximize the amount of room I've got in here, but at the same time I need enough room back here to run the hoses and stuff to the head. The one thing that's not an unknown is the height of the toilet. At least here in Denmark, the standard is 42 centimeters. There's gonna be a little bit of fiddling about here because I can't finish putting in this platform before I've built another little piece of the vanity, and I can't do that before I've figured out where the platform is gonna be, so I'm gonna have to do a little dry fit of this platform first. I want to make the base out of 18mm plywood, so of course I have to subtract 18mm to figure out the height of the support. After a little bit of fiddling about, I've got a reasonably good fit. Now I just need to figure out how far out towards the hull I can push the toilet and still have room for all of the hoses. But so far, this feels pretty good. The hose for the discharge doesn't bend very well. I don't know what it looks like on camera, but I think I've got enough room back here. There's definitely enough room down here for the hose. It's the bend from down here and up into the head I'm worried about. But yeah, I think it'll be okay. Better safe than sorry. I am gonna trim this to right around here. That leaves a good amount of space back here so I can bring the head a little bit further in case I need more room on the back. I think that is going to work really well. I don't feel cramped when sitting on the head, and there's a decent amount of room here. The biggest challenge in here is definitely going to be to figure out the shape of the vanity. Through the magic of CAD, cardboard aided design, this is what I think the head is gonna look like. The sink is a standard size sink for a small bathroom. It's something that I can buy in a store rather than making it myself, because my worst case scenario here was having to make some kind of odd shaped sink myself, but that would easily take a week or two, and I'd much rather save that time. To be able to fit that sink, I am gonna have to make a little piece of curved fiberglass down here that's gonna give all of this a nice organic shape, but that should be fairly easy. Ava would like the sink in here to be as big as it can possibly be because she's going to be washing her face in here. Now I think this is a good size, and you're able to sit down on the head without touching the sink. And there's also plenty of leg room down here. I think this is a winner. Like I mentioned, there are the drawers back here for easy access to storage. Down there we could put some kind of little cubby hole for shoving stuff into. And then, of course, all of this is going to be covered by a piece of plywood, so there's going to be a ton of storage in behind there too. There's, of course, also going to be a little bit of storage here underneath the sink, but a lot of the room down here is going to get taken up by the heating doohickey that's going to heat the head, but that is a topic for another video. I'm super excited to see what you guys think about this layout. I think it's going to work really well. The next step is to get all of the cardboard out of here and cut a piece of plywood that'll fit in here. I'm gonna let the bottom piece here be pretty high, maybe 20 centimeters, because there's gonna be that heating doodad in here, and also this is where all of the cables, electrical cables, are gonna cross from one side of the boat to the other to go into the technical compartment. I've just checked the weather forecast and it's too cold tonight for me to tab the support for the head to the hull, which is fine because I want to make sure I seal this up thoroughly on the inside before I install it. And also, if I postpone this until next weekend's video, then I can get my hands on the sink and we can just dry mount everything and make sure I don't mess anything up. That also gives me time to get my hands on some of that 38mm marine sanitary hose just to double check that it can in fact bend behind the head. That would be really nice to be sure of before I start putting everything together. Let's end this week's video up here at the workshop. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, all the parts for the gimbal box that's going to house the electric oven and the induction cooktop have arrived. As you can see, I've already shoved the oven in there and put the cooktop up on top just to give you guys an idea of what the finished product is going to look like. All that needs to happen for the box to be finished is to weld on the sides of the box and then build a little frame for the cooktop out of some angle iron. There's also the small matter of some kind of pot and pan retention device, because although this is going to be gimbaled, it would be nice to be able to lock everything down. But yeah, I think this is going to be pretty cool. Although the oven is a little bit small, this is a real bona fide electric oven like you'd find in any house, and this also has a built-in microwave. This is going to be so much better than cooking with propane. So now I just have to find someone who wants to buy the brand new, never used propane stove I bought for Athena a few years back. Under the watchful gaze of the Honorable Mr. Cement Boat guy, I'm going to start putting together the gimbal box tomorrow. But over here is something else that's pretty dang cool. This is Athena's new heat source, or in fact there's 3 of them here. It's 3 boilers, and they're based on a design that's in use today aboard the cement boat. The boiler is going to be used for heating the boat, but also for hot showers and hot water in the galley, and that's going to be done with a heat exchanger, so we're only going to be limited on the amount of hot water we can use by how much water we've got in our tanks. There's not going to be a pesky little hot water heater that's going to run out in the middle of a shower and be annoying. So yeah, this is going to be luxurious. As you can see, 2020 is shaping up to be a really spiffy year. I'm going to go ahead and order the parts I need for the head to be able to continue construction on that. And I think we might start out next week's video by getting started on building the gimbaled box, but we'll see. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like. See you!